to it?
So I've got way more time for our game today because we will all go out with a script on how the game should look and how it should be played, and then it doesn't look like that. But we were strong through that kind of turbulence, and it wasn't, they score on their 3 shots, we put up a bunch. You score 7 in the first, and then the game is going to change whether you want it to or not, because the other team changes the way they play, so it's not as physical. Guys aren't blocking the shots as much, but our structure wasn't too bad. So I got more time with that. We did come out right. I mean, we gave up 3 shots in about 10 minutes. It just happened they all went in. We had kind of the same effect at the other end. And then we get to move on. So we won't spend a lot of time in that game because the next game's not going to look like that. It'll be physical straight through, and neither team's going to give up as much maybe early on.
And you mentioned that. Next game certainly won't look like that one. New Jersey coming in. They've got a lot to play for, too. What do you expect out of this matchup against the Devils, and what are the keys to defending against them?
Well, they're an unusual team, puck possession team, hard gap defensive team that makes an awful lot of small area plays. So you've got to be on the right side of the puck, but you have to be tight gap with them. We can't give them room to play on because they use that. That's what they're good at. We have a different version of being offensively real good. Like both teams can score an awful lot of goals. Both teams defend with the same mindset, but possibly different because of the way we're physically built. But the team probably with the best gap tomorrow wins.
You saw Timo Meier a lot in the Winnipeg days.
Yeah.
Just what does he bring to them, do you think?
He's developed into a power forward, what I would say is kind of the new age power forward. He's got really good hands, really good shot, good sense, great skater, but he doesn't mind driving pucks to the net. There's a physicality to his game, which is a version, different styles, but the mindset's the same with Matthew Tkachuk. He's going to spend as much time as he can within 5 feet of the net, and he's got the hands to score. So that's a really good add for them. It was also, they added a player that's not like a lot of their other players, that they got a little heavier, a little stronger net front.
With a guy like Sam Reinhart, can you just talk a little bit about the advantage of having a guy who you can move kind of up and down the lineup, inside, outside, whether it's center or wing, and you get the same production?
Right, that's the key. So I'm going to say the same game.
Yeah.
So the production for sure is the point. But he will make the same decisions in his own end of the ice, whether Barkov's in the middle, Lundell's in the middle, Stahl, whoever. He's going to do the best right thing, next right thing. Sam is a guy whose brain doesn't turn off. He doesn't come in and out of games. Some guys ebb and flow, right? Their intensity, his mental intensity is the same all game. He continually makes the right play, the next right play. Sometimes that ends up in the back of their net. Sometimes it doesn't. But he's really diligent in his mindfulness during the game.
And just his ability to step into the face-off circle. I know he's done it a bit more.
Right.
Archie got hurt. He's been taking, and his face-off numbers over the last couple of weeks have been really good.
Really good. So we've moved him to the right side draws in all different situations. So he's taking power play and penalty kill, and then he's taking them all in the right corners. It's huge. We just don't have a lot of right-handed players. We have no right-handed centerman, so he can play the wing and still be effective. So much of being a good face-off man is rhythm and reps, but he's showing the ability to not play center ice, not take every face-off, and still be real strong with it.
And in a year where you guys have, everybody deals with injuries, but he's a guy who, if you just look at his over the years, he barely is out of the lineup.
Right. Intelligence, too. He takes very good care of himself. He's a really, really good pro. And he's also not in bad situations. He's not behind plays where you're pulling something, trying to make up for a mistake, or he doesn't put himself in a bad position along the walls. He's mentally ahead of the game, so he can get in and out of trouble.
I know he's been hurt a few times this year, but has Sasha Barkov surprised you in any way since you got here, now that you're his coach? I mean, from afar, that kind of thing?
His ability to move 10 feet as fast as he does with complete control of the puck. And usually it's a puck under a stick and into a hole. I've never seen a man that big move that fast into holes. I think he's still developing his game. I think he is capable. He's got a whole bunch of tools in his toolbox, and he uses the handle very, very well, but there's also a certain physicality that can come into his game. And he's starting to use it along the walls. He's starting to separate people with using his body, not just his quick hands. Other than that, there aren't a lot of facets in his game where he's not elite.
Coach, since the start of January, you guys are 10-1-1 following a loss. What do you think has been the greatest factor in just being able to be resilient, always find a way to bounce back?
The losses, especially as we moved forward into March, our losses aren't bad losses. They aren't games where we came out and were unprepared or got out-competed. Nashville, chances were 32-16 for us. We lost the game 2-1. those you can manage. Your game hasn't changed to the next win. The next win is just sometimes a different result around their net. I think since the first period of the Ranger game, the first game in January, we've played a much more consistent, much harder game. Our record bears that out. And still, in blocks of there, that January schedule was brutal. It'll be a little bit like what we're facing. And we were missing Barkov for a little while in there, too. But the consistency of our game is pretty darn good right now.
Colin White, big first period goal for you guys
Yeah.
yesterday. Just how you like to how he's kind of settled into that role now on the fourth line.
We've just used him all over, and to his credit, we've also sat him out games, and he hasn't pouted. He comes out, he's really good in practice today. He knows he has to drive every single day. That's what the role demands. And you know, it's a guy whose career, in some ways, like Eric Stahl, has changed over time. Now he's in a position that it's a role that you sitting on the bench for a while, and you got to be prepared. And he's done the same thing kind of in between games where he didn't get much and then he went back and he was prepared. So we know he's got a good release. I mean, he scores an awful lot of goals in practice glove side. And if you get him into the hole that he got into last night, he's going to beat the goalie.
Going back to Sasha real quick, I know obviously people around the organization love him. Do you just remember what the first things like Bill or anyone kind of told you about him? Like, what
Yeah, I got the same line from everybody. This guy's a way better player than you know because you have to watch him every day to appreciate it. So the stats will say he's a real good player. But there's just so few point-producing, Selke type players. There's just not a lot of them. Usually you have to hone one side or the other of your game to become elite at it. And they were right. Mostly, you guys can see it here better than you can see it in a game. You get close to the glass during practice. And keep in mind, these guys go hard in practice, but it's still not the same pace of a game. You get out and stand beside him, or you're 5'10", and he gets into a hole and turns and changes gears. It's an awesome thing to watch a man that big go from dead-footed to full speed. You know, that's part of the. I get fan moments in practice, and there's a lot with him, right? Like just on the sheer power, how fast he gets going. It's impressive.
Going back to last night when you were talking about the Bob and how you approached the game, like that you weren't worried about pulling him out, that he was a veteran.
Right.
Guy. Do you have that kind of a conversation with him after the game to let like?
We talked about it this morning because I was in a game against Montreal, actually, game 82 in Toronto. When I was standing behind the bench going, the first coach that pulls his goalie wins this game, right? Because it was one of those kind of shaky nights. You can feel it. But there was nobody on the bench. It's 3 goals. Yeah, he wants the first one back. He doesn't see the second one. Third one's a freak. It's just 3 goals on 3 shots, right? So we had a little laugh about it in between at the first time out, Bob and I never call him over. I never talk to the goalies, but just had a little joke on the bench about what the hell was going on out there. He settled in, but I had complete faith that he was the right guy to handle this game because it got worse. Not so much goals. Then he sat for like 10 minutes without a shot, and there was the shot off the side that didn't count, and then there was a block. There wasn't any work for him. So just think that in that situation, your best guy is going to be a guy who's got a big volume of games, mental toughness that he can grind through. And then he gets to keep that. Next time he goes into a game and the first 2 don't go his way, he's not going to be wondering whether he can pull this out.
I saw a stat the other day that Tkachuk is like maybe the best in the league at offensive zone puck retrievals.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm sure some of that is just like effort and relentlessness, but what makes him so good at that?
A complete lack of fear and hand skills would be the 2 things. And the last time I saw that stat of players over 800 minutes, he was just above the teens. He was in the 11 or 12. And on those stats, there's enough aberration in what's a puck
What
battle and
counts,
what's
yeah.
not, right? You just know he's elite at it. So he's never at the end of his stick with it. He's not afraid. He's going to roll. He does a really strong job of rolling his hips into people and then separating them that way. And I'm still amazed at his hands. And I see him every single day. Mm-hmm. And he does stuff that's just, you know, I mean, I don't know, I've coached 800-900 players. You just don't see guys with that. It's just at a completely different level. His ability to tip pucks, lay pucks off to where he wants them and then find them in feet and make the next play. He scored the goal the other night out of the corner against Chicago that kind of got us going to Bennett backdoor. That's a broken play, and we've lost that play. We're done. We're chasing it down the other, and he knocks it down, comes out of the corner. He also will bring it to traffic. He doesn't try to skate to open ice all the way because he's also not the fastest guy in the league, so he's got no problem taking that right through traffic. So he's not afraid, and he's got great hands.
He's only getting better too because he's 25.
The parts of his game, even the defensive parts of his game, truly have grown leaps and bounds this year. And I don't know that we'll know he's a better player because he gets 140 points. If he can, and I believe he will consistently put these points up, and his plus minus continues to grow when he plays against the other team's best, and his minutes at 21, 22. Yeah, he's going to be a really good. Well, he's a great player now, but he's going to be a dominant force here in this league for Florida fans.
Thanks, guys.